President Zelensky to the UK. We've had a good chat already. We've got lots to discuss over the course of this day about how we can continue to support Ukraine in their struggle against Russia.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome back to the channel. You may have noticed over the last few days the level of corruption that is taking place in most of the countries across most of the world. And in most of the countries throughout most of the world, you will see the leaders of these countries, they appear to be very corrupt. There's all sorts of corruption going on all over the place. Nobody voted for this corruption. Nobody said, oh, I want this really corrupt individual to be in charge of my country, and I want to give all my country's money to war and human trafficking and Nazis and, whatever else. But it's happened. So, how did it happen? And what can we do about it? So I thought it might be interesting to look at what the Bible says about how this happened and what the Bible says we can do about it. The Bible says that a strong leader is a blessing and that a foolish leader is a curse, i.e., it's not an accident. So if you have a foolish leader, and we're seeing foolish leaders all over the world, it's not an accident, it's a curse. And if you have an amazing leader that's really good, it's a blessing. What does this mean, it's a blessing or it's a curse? Well, what it means by it's a curse is that this is God's judgment. This is God's discipline upon the world. And people, especially non-believers that will listen to this, will be like, well, listen, this sounds horrible. Like, are you telling me that God is doing this or God is allowing this to happen? Or, I don't like this. I don't like this judgment. I don't like discipline. It hurts me to receive discipline. Do you think a child likes discipline? Children don't like discipline, yet we discipline our children if we love them. And we recognize the value in disciplining our children. Children hate discipline. Should we not discipline them? What we're experiencing right now is short-term suffering for long-term gain. As a country, as a nation, and as a world, we are walking away from God. We have decided we don't want to listen to God anymore, we don't want to believe in God anymore, and we're walking away from God. And this curse of these foolish, corrupt leaders is how God is calling you back. Because without God, this situation is only going to get worse. Okay, Rishi Sunak or Emmanuel Macron or Justin Trudeau, they're not going to have like a crisis of confidence and decide, actually, you know what, I really want to start helping the world and believing in God and doing the right thing and helping out my fellow man. Like, they're not going to fix this by themselves. Okay, we're at a situation, and people often ask me, Alistair, what are we going to do? We've got these corrupt leaders all over the world and blah, 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 blah. We're going to turn to God. That's what we're going to do, because we're in a situation where only God can get us out of this. Because the people that run the world are evil. And I'm just saying that very matter-of-factly, but you can see it. Why are they all just clapping this guy who's basically an establishment-controlled war criminal? Why are we just giving all our money for weapons to create a war? It's because the rulers of this world are evil. And they're not hiding it anymore. And you're not voting for this corruption. You're not voting for this evil. But because you've turned your back on God and you've walked away from God, what's happening is that justice is far from you. And the truth has stumbled and fallen in the street. Things like justice and truth, they actually come from God. You know the phrase, your God-given rights? There's a reason why this is a phrase. When you're walking with God as a nation, when you believe in God, the only types of people that you will accept as your leaders are people that believe in God. So you end up with a man of God as your leader when you believe in God. So you end up with a wise leader. Are the leaders that we have now wise? You look at the leaders like Bill Gates that we have around the world. Is he wise? Is Klaus Schwab wise? Well, the world says these people are wise because they have a lot of money. So they must be wise about the world. You know, look at all the money that Bill Gates has. Well, he must know everything. And this is how we judge who should lead us, but you know how much money they have. Like Rishi Sunak, he's got all this money. He's this banker. He's got all this money. Is that how the Bible says we should judge wisdom? This is not what the Bible says, surprisingly. The Bible says the fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. The fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. And if you think about this, a man who fears God, a man who acts as though there is an all-powerful, all-seeing God who is watching his every move, will behave in a wise fashion. Imagine you truly believed that there's an all-powerful, all-seeing God watching everything you do, and he has the power either to bring you into heaven or to cast you into hell. Okay, if you truly believe that, how might you behave? Would you steal from the poor? Would you tax people into poverty to fuel the greed of rich men? Would you allow innocent children to be harmed if you truly feared God? Is it wise to cheat on your wife? Would a man who fears God cheat on his wife? Is it wisdom to murder someone for £1 billion? If you could get away with it, and somebody said, I need you to murder someone, you're going to get £1 billion, you're definitely going to get away with it. You know, is it wise to say yes to that? Is it wise to murder someone? I mean, most people will say, no, it's not wise to murder somebody. If you murder somebody, you're going to have this guilt, and it's going to darken your soul, and it's going to ruin your life. And inwardly, we know this. We know that if we do evil, if we become evil, it'll ruin our life. You know, we know this. But some of these world leaders, if you ask them the same question, if you ask them like, oh, you know, if you can cause somebody to die, but you get all this money and power, do you think they would say, oh, absolutely not? I mean, how do you think they got into these positions? Most of these world leaders are compromised. They've had to do horrendously evil things. It's all been videotaped on Epstein Island. They're being blackmailed. They got into this place through evil, a lot of these people. It's not easy to hear that, but, you know, it happens to be the truth. There's a part in the Bible where the devil is tempting Jesus in the desert. And one of the temptations the devil offers Jesus is he says, you know, bow down and worship me and all this will be yours. And he shows him all the riches and power in the world. And the devil offers this to Jesus. Now, the reason this is a real temptation, the devil's really offering this to Jesus, he's really tempted Jesus. The reason this is a real temptation is because this is within the devil's power to offer. Okay, the devil is actually in charge of all the money and riches and power. The devil can give you this amazing riches and wealth and power because none of these worldly things are actually of God. The Bible says several times that the ruler of this world, the prince and power of the air, the prince of darkness, that, you know, the devil was in charge down here. And the reason the devil is in charge down here is to bring you back to God. When you walk away from God, you start to live in hell on earth. You start to have corrupt leaders. And God is calling you to come back to him. And this is what is happening in our country. You know, we've got these leaders that we deserve. You know, no one believes in God anymore. No one listens to God anymore. And look what's happening to us. You see, if the fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom, if God is real, and you're a creation of God, and you're completely in God's power, the most foolish thing you could possibly do would be to spit in the face of God. Anyone that does that would be considered a fool. The Bible says you cannot serve money and God. You must choose. Well, in this world today, we've chosen for us leaders that love money. We've chosen for us those that do not fear God. We have chosen fools to be our leaders. We used to be a Christian country. Okay, we used to follow Jesus. Now we follow Rishi Sunak. Is it any wonder that we've ended up in a worse place? You know, we used to follow Jesus. Do you know where Jesus is going? Now we follow Bill Gates. Do you know where Bill Gates is going? You know, after Epstein Island, do you know where Bill Gates is going to end up in eternity? And Bill Gates is considered a wise man by the world because he has so much money, so people follow him. You know, is it wisdom to acquire riches at the expense of others? But deep down, we still know this. We still know that following riches and money and evil is wrong. We're still outraged by the Grammys. We still look at people worshiping Satan and go, well, this is a bad idea. This is wrong. The analogy I use is, imagine you go to Los Angeles or something and you meet this guy and he takes you up to his big house in the hills and his giant swimming pools, and he tells you about all these properties he owns and all these businesses that he runs, all this money that he's got. And at the end of the tour, he says, and I got all this by worshiping the devil. You would immediately stop to consider that man to be wise, and you'd immediately start thinking, where is the door here? How do I get out of here? I don't want to be on the road that this guy is on. And that's, I believe, where we are in the world and where this country is. You know, the type of people that are rising to top in this world that values money and power and social media influence, and, you know, this is how you become a good person in this world. You get all this money and influence. You know, we don't look to God anymore for truth. So we've got all these liars in charge. You know, we used to turn to the Bible for truth. We used to turn to the Bible for truth. Now we turn on our phones. If you want to know the truth, you don't say, let me see what God says. You say, let's Google it. If you want to know if something's true, you Google it. You know, our wisdom used to come from God. Now it comes from these giant corporations. All right? And the more we use these phones, the worse our lives become. All these things in the world we could be doing, we could be looking at, and we spend hours a day staring at this thing. And we think that these things make us wise. We think that the way the world's set up, it makes us wise. And thinking ourselves wise, ladies and gentlemen, we have become fools. And that's why we are led by fools. The fear of God is the beginning of all wisdom. So a man that does not fear God is a fool. Doesn't matter how much money you have. If you do not fear God, you're acting like a fool. The Bible says of wisdom, prize her, and she will exalt you. We should be prizing in our leaders, above all, men who fear God. That's who should be leading us. That's how he used to lead us as a Christian country. Think about it, really. Even if you're an atheist, would you want a leader that believed that there's an all-seeing, all-powerful God watching them to make sure that they do good by their fellow man? Of course you would. So what does the Bible say to do in these circumstances? Well, the Bible says that if my people who are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I should hear from heaven and forgive their sin and heal their land. That's how we got here, ladies and gentlemen. We turned away from God. We turned towards money and technology. And we've ended up with the type of leaders that these choices have led for us to have. It's not too late, ladies and gentlemen. Humble yourselves and pray and seek his face and get yourself a Bible and start finding out what the truth is from here. Don't go on Google. Okay? God and Google are not the same thing. Right. That's the point of the video. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you very much, the people that do, for continuing to support this channel financially via the links in description. We now have a link so you can support via locals. For people who don't want to do subscribe stars, fine, whatever, we can do it there. Anyway, Thanks very much, and see you guys in the next video. Bye.